During our intro chat, you mentioned that you just finished an ultra marathon. What's more difficult, training for an ultra or convincing someone to stick with rehab exercise?
Definitely getting somebody to stick with rehab exercises. It's absolutely.
Yeah, fascinating. Can't wait to explore that. Let's dive in. Following is a conversation with Greg Lothian, an athlete therapist, biomechanics innovator, and founder of Acculete. For nearly 30 years, Greg has been reshaping how we understand and rebuild the human movement, challenging conventional rehabilitation methods, and pioneering long-lasting solutions. This is Pre-Zero Sports Talk podcast, and I'm your host, Sid Bensalah. Today, we'll dive deep into why rehab often fails and how Greg is changing the game through evidence, innovation, and empathy, believe it or not. Greg, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. Looking forward to it.
Excellent. What made you realize traditional rehab wasn't working anymore?
The biggest shift for me actually was moving from varsity sports. So I was working in varsity and I was a head strength and conditioning coach and acting head therapist for a university. And when I exited out of there into private practice, it was just such a disconnect. And I think people can identify with that when they see the treatment that athletes get and wonder why they can't get that in their own lives. That was the question for me too. And I started looking at the system, and very early in my career, I started looking at how do we bring that varsity or elite experience to the general public who really want to stay active and healthy.
Any personal story or pivotal moment that sparked this realization?
Well, there were two things. One, I had a back injury that was, I was training very intensely in martial arts, and I realized in retrospect, it was the coaching that didn't identify certain platform behaviors that you need to do early on that led to, at least in part, to the injury. But also, I was connected. I knew people. I knew what to do. And even for me to get the treatment and the varsity experience that I needed to get better in the manner that I knew was possible was very difficult. And very often we get asked by our clients, do you have a good source for this? Or do you know this? And I've always sort of imagined how hard it can be for somebody who doesn't have my knowledge to navigate and find all of the things that they need to be able to get to where they want to get to. It's difficult enough, and it's getting more difficult with the media online, whose only true expertise, let's be honest, is sounding like an expert. So it's, those were really pivotal for me to be able to say, like, no, we can do a better job here. We can definitely help more people and change our approach to things. It wasn't overnight. I know why it hasn't happened quickly, because now I've been through it and tried to figure it out.
Yeah. Why do you insist on a full year commitment?
I get this question a lot. So when people want to work with me, you're right, they have to sign up for a year. And I start with late stage rehab and I bring them all the way to pre-fitness or whatever. And the reason for that is because there is a major problem in treating people 3 or 4 times. From the practitioner side, it's really not satisfying because you're not getting to the things that you need to get to. From the client side of things, you're putting out a lot of money and not really seeing a lot of results. You don't have to talk to too many people who have asked if they went and saw a physio and how did that go? And it's like, well, I saw a physio, but it didn't help. And in large part, it's because, well, how many times you go? What did they do? What was the whole thing? The whole thing is set up to, let's get better as fast as possible. We all know inherently that, if you've had back pain for 10 years, it's not going to go away in 2 weeks. It's just not, So if you're going to go through the steps you need to go through, and what people don't realize is in injury rehab, there are 3 stages, and everybody thinks they can jump from injury rehab to fitness. There are 5 stages to go through that are reconditioning stages to get you just ready to embark on a fitness journey or a health journey on your own. And everybody's skipping those steps. And what's happening is they're now doing stuff that's inappropriate for their bodies. They get injured again and kicked right back down to the bottom.
Yeah. And when your clients hear this, I need you to commit for 1 year, what's their reaction to that idea?
So the conversation, I'm one of the very few, especially people that work in injury rehabilitation. I do late stage injury rehabilitation, who believes in meeting people for the first time. I actually do it twice. I do it once on the phone and once in person, and I don't charge them for it.
Okay.
Because we have a conversation. The first time I get on, when I get a referral, I get on the phone with them. Get on the phone and say, hey, what's the issue? What's going on? I want to make sure, and I preface this conversation with, I want to make sure that what I can do was actually going to be helpful to you. And then I get a chance to, so I hear their story, and then I get a chance to say, okay, so here's how I work. If usually they don't know how I work because the referral person, whoever told them to come see me, never gave them any information. Right. So I'll tell them, like, okay, so this is my process. We're going to get rid of your injuries. We're going to work to find out how your body is working and why it's working that way so that we can make you more resilient. We're going to give you exercise programs. We're going to follow you. And at the end of our time together, you're going to end up with a book of exercise programs that you can repeat over and over again. And we'll address everything we need to address. And at the end of it, you get this, basically the book of Sid, that is a training manual that you can review over and over again, year after year. And you won't need me. The whole idea is you don't need me again after that. How does that sound to you? And the reaction I get is, well, first of all, I never even thought this was available. And second of all, of course, that's what I want. This is what I've been looking for. I just didn't believe I could find it. Mm-hmm. And then when I tell them, it's like, okay, so the commitment is a year because it takes a long time to get through all of these things. And the other thing is that I do differently than anyone else in our industry is I don't count appointments. We do everything we have to do whenever we have to do it, and I charge for the year. I charge an upfront fee to get started and then a monthly. And I really believe that our industry needs to change to that because, nickel and diming for, if somebody needs to swing by for 10 minutes because you need to do something with them or whatever, all this counting appointment stuff is a real waste of time. And when I tell them that, when I first started trying to do this, I was like, oh man, I'm going to get a lot of pushback from this. I have never gotten pushback from it, ever. Not even from the beginning. When I told people this is how it works, all it was relief. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Was like, oh, I can do this? Amazing.
Yeah, really interesting. And when the clients, they get on board with the idea first, the commitment, 12 months commitment, how has your approach changed patient outcomes in real life terms?
It's night and day from what I was able to do before. So here's a real world scenario that I battled with early on. I always believed in finding out what was truly, by the time people came in to see me, they had usually seen a bunch of other people, tried to solve this problem, been working on it for months. So I always believed in doing a full biomechanical assessment. I wanted to find out how your body's working and why it's working that way. And this was right at the beginning. This is how this went. A full biomechanical assessment you cannot complete in an hour. So it was typically doing an hour with them and then another, half an hour and then an hour on my own to analyze this whole thing. I created a priority list of all of the things that needed to be changed and addressed and all that sort of stuff. And then I would start, and in the third session, I would give them their first program and, we're off to the races, right? Mm-hmm. Well, I was still charging by appointment then. From the client's point of view, I've seen Greg 3 times. It's cost me hundreds of dollars, and I've got one exercise program. So now it's like you've just set yourself up for having to justify all of this stuff that you did.
Yeah.
Now what I do is, we're in it for a year. First of all, because I know I can work with them many times. We're in it for a year, and I'm not counting appointments. I might meet with them once a week or twice a week for the first 2 or 3 weeks or something. Go through a staged assessment, do a little bit of an assessment, give them some stuff to do a little bit of an assessment, give them some stuff to do, work through some of the stuff that clients find boring, but work through them quickly because we can work more frequently together, and then space it out. Have conversations on things over time, like, I'm having a hard time fitting this into my life. Okay, let's talk about your life. Let's talk about how do we fit this into a life and what's reasonable, what's not reasonable. The outcomes are so much different because we can, as professionals, give real professional advice to people on how to navigate the whole health journey, what we call the vitality pathway. It's how are we getting you from where you are to where you want to be in a way that's really reliable? There is no comparison from what we're doing now to what this industry standard is.
Yeah. Why is sticking to strength training still such a big challenge?
I realized after all the work that I did in trying to address this issue is because we've been going at it all wrong. So first of all, most of us that go through, so I went through athletic therapy, and then I did certification in strength conditioning, or whether people are going through physiotherapy or they're going, become osteopaths or chiropractors or whatever. There are very few programs. Chiropractor is actually one of the only programs that actually has marketing and business structure in their learnings. All of the other ones, you don't learn anything about client motivation, sales, getting people to stick to programs, whatever. Anyway, so I researched it myself and, became more interested in how do we get people to stick to programs. And the final realization, and everybody I say this to is like, yeah, of course, why, we all know this.
Yeah.
Is humans don't do anything that isn't their idea. So if I'm telling you that it's a good idea for you to do this stuff, but it's not your idea, you're not going to stick to it. I have to present things to you in a way that makes you want to be fully invested in the process. I'm just giving professional advice. I can't hold your hand. I can't force you to do it. It's like working with a teenager. You can't, you can't tell them to do things. You can only educate them, and humans of any age are the same way. Yeah. It's so one of the things that I realized when I finally realized that is like, well, we're doing assessments, and whether you're in injury rehab or you're in fitness or health or whatever it is, you need to be doing assessments. But don't just do assessments that you understand, because a lot of the stuff we do is, I've been doing this for 28 years. I'm very good at it. I tend to fire through it. I understand it, whatever. It is very arbitrary to the end user. Really hard for them to understand, even if we give them really good analogies about how, oftentimes you're talking about how, related to a car and how you would fix a car and all that sort of stuff. It's still, if you're not doing an assessment, like, so here's an example. I test your shoulder strength and it feels weak. And it feels, it feels weak to you too. And I stop there and I say, okay, so we're going to strengthen this. So that's scenario A. Scenario B is I've measured that your output for strength and capacity on this arm is 250 pounds of accumulated strength before it really starts to die off. Then I go and I test the uninjured arm, and you're at 750 pounds. What does that tell you? Most people that look at numbers like that, they're very easy to understand. Oh, I'm really far from the non-injured side. I really need to work on this. And actually something that happened the other day, I was teaching I was in Nelson, BC, and I was teaching this course, and we were doing some testing with some of the participants that were there. And this one guy wanted to test his hamstring capability because he had had a knee surgery, and he had gone through rehab and all that sort of stuff. And he wanted to know the condition of that hamstring and that the leg strength because of the stuff that he had been through in the previous year. And he had no idea. And when we tested him, his injury leg was stronger than his non-injury leg because he had been concentrating on it so much that now he was like wildly imbalanced.
Wow.
We never would have known any of these things if we didn't objectively measure it. And then he looks at that and is like, oh, wow, I need to fix this.
Yeah.
And when we present data to people like that, it's really easy for them to understand. It's really easy. Every time I do an assessment now and I show them the numbers of like, here's where you're at. What do you think you need to do? And the answers are very easy. This is, I need to fix that.
Yeah. Greg, you deal here with different persona, different attitude. Of course, there is no silver bullet or no a quick fix thing in a very short period of time. But what method have you found that actually increase adherence, motivation as well?
So the assessments that they understand, but there's a step before that. We had an interesting conversation yesterday. We were talking about demographics of people, and so there is this thought process that is prevalent that like there's all these people that like to train and stay healthy and do all these things. Mm-hmm. And then there's all these people that don't. Well, there's actually 3 divisions of people. There's people that like to stay healthy and train and enjoy that. There's the people that truly don't see value in it. Mm-hmm. And then there's a huge amount of people who want to do it, just don't know how. So when we're looking at taking clients on, this is a problem when, you're working at a clinic or you're working at a gym where the gym is handing you clients and you have no choice but to work with those clients. You're sort of stuck in this process where, you're working with people that maybe don't have the right mindset. But one of the things that I do in my process is I make sure that the person I'm going to work with, no matter what their background is or anything mm-hmm. like that, I want to make sure that it's them that wants this, not me, So one of the best questions I ask in my free consultation which is part of my assessment, is on a scale from 1 to 10. If 1 was you'd change nothing about your life, you're perfectly happy with the way things are going. 8 is you would make significant changes to achieve whatever goal you're trying to achieve. And 10 is you would, quit jobs, move countries, get divorced, to achieve this. Where are you from a scale from 1 to 10? If a prospect sitting in front of you is below an 8, and you can't even, if they say I'm a 6, and you say, okay, what would bring you to an 8? And nothing can bring them to an 8, then you shouldn't take them.
Yeah.
Because anybody below an 8 isn't going to do the stuff you're telling them to do. And we are only a vessel for professional advice. And, very often people are coming to us with what they think they need. You don't go to a lawyer with what you think you need. You go to a lawyer for advice. It's the same thing in the medical industry. And it's the same thing in the physical health industry for us. It's, I think practitioners like myself, we call them PHPs, physical health practitioners. So no matter where they are, they're working to help people with their physical health. PHPs need to view themselves as professionals and need to stop accepting just the things that they think the clients want and start analyzing it and say, okay, first of all, are you driven for whatever you're telling me you want to achieve? And are you going to listen to the advice and follow the things that we're telling you to do?
Great. What exactly is Acculete?
So for too many years, I searched and searched and searched for a way to get a much better understanding of what was happening with my clients from an objective point of view. And there's a lot of force dynamometers and force plates and all these different things. I kept looking at these things, and first of all, they were wildly expensive. Some of the like force frame was like $10,000, that type of thing. Force plates and force dynamometers were $2,000-$3,000. Like everybody knows a grip strength test, the grip strength test you did in high school. Yeah. Even the analog version of that, just the spring loaded version of that was $1,000. And it was like, wow. Okay, wait a second. How come I can buy an industrial fish scale off Amazon that's good for 400 pounds of force and is accurate, it's digital, and it's $60, and I can't get some sort of force dynamometer for less than $1,000. There's still there's a company that has a force dynamometer. It's just a handheld thing with a bunch of little features on it. It's $3,000, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. So I set to having a better look at how we're collecting data. So Acculete got created because we initially started by let's make a better force dynamometer. But the thing I realized early on was it's really good to have the technology in our hands. But again, because humans don't do anything that isn't their idea, the technology needs to get into their hands. So we need to make this affordable enough and functional enough, right? So Acculete, what it is now is, first of all, we have educational stuff to help practitioners understand how to get their clients to where they're going. But it's a force dynamometer that is also a smart anchor. And what that means is I can do an assessment with somebody, get all the numbers that I need, then I can hand it over to them. They can anchor this thing to the wall, they can put resistance bands through it, and they can train doing whatever exercise we need them to do. Because when you're training with resistance bands or elastics or whatever, you can do whatever exercises you need to do. You don't need weights or anything like that. You can now train with all of those numbers. And so the short answer is we're a force dynamometer and smart anchor in one. And with the education on how this industry should change to better facilitate the entire process from assessment, prescription, and training.
You compare yourself to a human mechanic. Can you elaborate?
Yeah, so I'm more of I would say an engineer. And is that the type of thing you're referring to? What do you mean by human mechanic? Yeah. So I was really lucky. I wasn't a great student in high school. It wasn't because I wasn't smart. I just wasn't interested in the stuff they were teaching. And when I fell into, I always viewed myself as a non-educational, person, really, because of the experiences I had. And I knew I wanted to learn a couple of things. I wanted to learn about the human body, and I wanted to learn about how things worked. I was really good with emergencies. I was really good with crisis management. And I got into this program for athletic therapy, exercise science. And what I realized was my whole youth, I had been messing around with understanding physics accidentally. And it turned out my mind was very much the engineering mind. And I spend my entire career in everything that I do, not just my career, I guess my life, in trying to understand chaotic situations and understand the engineering behind it so that we can figure out what is the one thing that we can change right now to make the whole system better. And that's just how my mind has always worked. Biomechanics for me came very, very easily. It seemed like this daunting subject when I got into it. And with the students around me, very quickly, I just started teaching the people around me, well, as a student, because I understood it. And when people ask me, when they get into this industry, what's the first thing I should do? Understand physics. This is what the first thing you should do.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting because understanding human mechanics and the physics that it's around, plus you explained earlier about Acculete and you gather real-time data within your approach. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, the difference between you and the other methods. I think we spoke about it during our intro chat. You highlighted that the traditional tracking methods like Excel sheets and things like that, it doesn't work anymore, which is it's basically it fails the clients, which they need a clear understanding of what to improve within a certain period of time and what to do. And all this, it's of course based on data, based on their progress, and without a real-time data, you go nowhere actually.
Yeah, yeah,
If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's very difficult. We've been for a long time in this genre of work that we do. So much of it is educated guess. And we really need to stop having that approach. And when I started measuring everything, like you say, it made a huge difference to my understanding. Even though for somebody like me, I was very good at biomechanics, I understand it really well. I can visualize it. I have that mind that does that. But there were still things that I was finding when we measured them that were like, oh, wow, I didn't understand the magnitude of that issue and how it was impacting the body. One of the things that I think that's really, we can really help the world of, PHPs with is early on, and anybody who's, done continuing education or they've gone through an education process where they're, analyzing somebody's posture, almost everybody in our industry has done that. And at one point you're standing beside somebody who is like very experienced, and you're looking at somebody and they say, do you see this? And for the life of you, you're looking at it and you're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Because it takes a long time to develop that. Well, one of the things that we can really help with is when you start measuring everything, then you can start showing people like, okay, you see this tiny little change? Let's measure what's going on here. That's how, and now you get the numbers, and this is how this is reflecting in the human body. Now can you see it? And when you start doing that with our young people that are coming up into the industry, it accelerates the whole process, the whole understanding of what's going on. It can help them dismiss the misinformation they're seeing online from these experts who are just, obviously don't know what they're talking about, or not so obviously don't know what they're talking about. It can really clear the air. We talk about evidence-based practice. Evidence-based practice is this thing that in our industry we've been talking about for a long time. And I keep going to conferences and saying, what evidence are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about when it comes to evidence, because you're referencing clinical trials that maybe had a couple hundred people at most in them. There are a couple, when you bring a whole bunch of information together, maybe you have, thousands of people or something like that. We could literally be getting data on millions and millions of people every day if we started doing this properly. And then we would have some true data as to what's going on. When people stick to the program, how long does it take before it really makes a difference? And what about, because we're not doing a clinical trial, now we're doing it with people in their real lives. And we have a better understanding of actually how to help humans,
Yeah. For our audience, can you share again the story of a client who spent $35,000 before seeing you?
Yeah, so I had this one client. Oh, it was so unfortunate too. Like, super nice guy. He had been, he spent 6 months in Africa doing tours as a tour guide, and then 6 months back in Canada. And he had this foot problem. He was on his feet all day, and he had gone every year. He'd come back. He'd gone and seen multiple different therapists and strength coaches and chiropractor. That was one of the ones he spent an enormous amount of money on. And so he did this for about 2.5 years. And so he was on his third year. He came back. He found me through I don't know what channel. And so I did what I normally do. Okay, I'm not going to do a standard assessment because, the standard injury, oh yeah, you hurt there, that doesn't tell me anything.
Yeah.
So I asked him to tell me the whole story. So first of all, the first thing that happened that was really unfortunate was, and this doesn't happen very often, the story he told me was word for word in a textbook that all of the professionals he had seen should have studied. So very, very few cases fit in a textbook of what the classical symptoms are and all that sort of stuff, because human nature is not like that. Well, his was exactly that. And it was like, it's very obvious. We haven't confirmed it, but it's very obvious what the symptoms and what we're saying what the outcome of the problem is. But again, that's not where to stop, because the symptoms you're feeling are not the problem. They're just the sign of the problem, right? Yeah. So I was like, okay, now we have a full understanding of what the problem is, and everybody you saw should have been to be able to identify this, and maybe they did, but they failed to go to the next step and find out what's actually causing this problem. So
because
we do it.
Sorry, Greg, just for the listeners, here you are purely pinpointing the root cause, which, correct me if I'm wrong, the other practice completely missed.
They're so focused, and this is one of the reasons why, working on this pay per appointment model, it is not helpful, is because we're in that model, you're focused on helping people feel better.
Okay.
Helping people feel better is not making people better. They are not the same thing. So, the luxury of working with people over a long period of time is like, okay, we can help to address the pain, and that's fine because you need to feel less pain. But simultaneously, we're going to address what the actual problem is, and we're going to get to the root of the problem. So your pain was in your foot, that isn't the problem. The problem was happening in your back.
Yeah.
And, so we work to correct that sort of stuff. And you know what? He was out of pain and back to training like in less than a month, because we had figured out what the cause of the problem was, corrected a few things, and then from there, if you want it to stick, that's where the magic happens. You want it to stick, you have to train them properly after that. So like the relief for him, he had been in pain for 2.5 years. And, in less than a month, I think it was probably just over 2 weeks, he wasn't in pain anymore. And then we could get to actually making him more resilient so he'd go back and do what he loved to do, because he loved doing the safari tours. That's what he loved to do. And it was killing his ability to do it.
Yeah. So again, the majority of, let's say, the standard within your industry, let me throw a number here, and correct me again if I'm wrong, 90% or more than 90%, the standard is, the focus is mainly symptom therapy.
I think a lot of the people in the industry would say like, no, I'm not just working on symptoms. I'm working on correcting the problem. I wouldn't necessarily disagree that that's their intent. What I would disagree with is working with somebody 3, 4, 5, 10 times isn't enough time to get to the goal that you're saying you're trying to get to. So it's okay. You might have the intention, and I did too at the beginning. I had the intention of fixing people's problems so that they don't need me again. The reality is working with somebody for a month or 2 is never going to do that.
Yeah. Let me go back to what you said earlier at the beginning. The phone call, maybe the second meeting, either in person or, and it's so basically you don't charge for it. But the entire process, or let's say the first phase between interviewing and talking with the client, trying to figure out what the issue is and stuff like that. How easy or how difficult to shift the client perspective for a long-term solution instead of quick fix?
Instantaneous. Because usually by the time, like when you take the time to listen to people and what the actual problem is, and then you say like, okay, well, there are some people that I've been on the phone with and they've said like, yeah, well, I'm just looking for, I just want to feel a little. But every conversation, whether it was for actually, this is a good way to look at it. Whether it was for somebody that was referred to me and I'm on the phone with them, or I'm having a conversation with somebody, because, as soon as somebody finds out you're an athletic therapist, strength coach, then everybody's like, oh, I got this shoulder problem, like whatever. So I've been in a lot of conversations about the rehab process, the training process, all that sort of stuff. And when you present the possibility that somebody could be treated like an elite athlete and go through a process that can truly rebuild them, if they're over the age of 35, they are very interested in this. If they're, The 25 to 35, it really depends on what their experience level. Under 25 is complete waste of time, unless you're capturing them at like 15 and really teaching them all of the stuff they need to do, which our young coaches, really, they need to be doing a better job with these athletes and how they're coaching them. And I think they're trying. But from if you're working in a public space, people over the age of 35, when you tell them like, hey, you want a long-term solution? Yeah, they're in. They want it. That's what they're looking for. And people ask me, it's like, well, it's expensive. I've had people in this that obviously couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
But cost and value are not the same thing. Because the cost of something is just what's coming out of their pocket. The value of the outcome, people will bend over backwards to get a valuable outcome.
Yeah. What type of clientele you have? Have you dealt with the elite athletes, female, male, age group?
From 14 to 80, all that wanted to make a difference, wanted to get to training, wanted to improve their training. So it's, I don't work with people that aren't driven to a goal. That's probably the biggest criteria. But everything else, I've worked with tons of people with physical disabilities, all kinds of people that are facing some sort of challenge and really want to get to where they want to get to. I don't care if they, want to be in high performance sports or not. Matter of fact, like I had the opportunity to go and work in just professional sports. And I always found it self-limiting because you're working with a small group of people that are just focused on this. My experience, I've worked with thousands of people from all kinds of different walks of life and all kinds of different abilities. And man, has it taught me a lot about, what's realistic, what people can do, what they can't do, what actually makes their lives better. It's been very rewarding. But the biggest thing is take clients who really want to go somewhere.
Yeah. And the clients, they approach you directly, or have you dealt with clients that contacted you through their physiotherapist or the team or club or?
Yeah, I get referrals from all kinds of places. So I haven't advertised in 10 years or something like that.
Okay.
For me, the only times that I guess I've received sort of that organic, somebody just contacted me, it was if I did like some sort of workshop, if I did a workshop on like back pain or something like that, and then people have questions and whatever, and I connect like that. Otherwise, there are a whole bunch of people out there. I just get these referrals that are like, they know nothing about me. They just had this friend who said, yeah, no, you need to see Greg. and when I talk to them, they're like, well, why did they say that you need to see me? They didn't tell me why. They just told me to stop wasting my time going anywhere else. I'm like, okay.
Great.
Great. Yeah.
Greg, can you explain your vitality pathway concept?
Yeah, so this is, I think, probably this will help a lot of PHPs and a lot of clients understand what is actually happening from a physical health point of view. So if you look at a pathway where the beginning of the pathway is injured, incapacitated, as close to dead without being dead. The other end of the pathway is the highest end of high performance that you could possibly achieve. We can all agree that we are all somewhere along this pathway. What's interesting is understanding what's the stages of the pathway to get to, first of all, so that you can understand where you are. So the beginning of the pathway, there's injury rehab stage 1, 2, 3. These are very well defined. They're, we're taught them in school. I was taught them in school, 28 years ago. And, we can identify where you're at with that. Then there's these 5 stages that I've identified that are in between the stage 3 injury rehab and really being prepared to get into a fitness or health regime on a regular basis in a way that is reliable, where you're not going to get injured. And what the biggest thing that people need to understand is what those 5 stages are, especially the first 3. So the first 3 are what I call reconditioning. Phase 1 is looking at people's imbalances. So whether they're movement imbalances or strength imbalances, they need to be addressed, because imbalances lead to the worst type of problems when it comes to resilience later in life. Joints that get worn out unevenly, back pain, all these types of things. We address those first. The second, reconditioning phase 2 is so many people are walking around that don't know how to control their posture properly. So the simplest thing of taking your lower back and putting it right in the right spot where you could put an axial load on it, so carry something on your shoulder, push something over your head, do a squat, do something like that. Anytime you're putting an axial load on your spine, it needs to be in the right position. Without any resistance at all, most people have no idea what that is and cannot find that spot. If I ask them just to reposition their lower back, the rest of the body moves. So this is a concept we call dissociation. So you need to be able to, move one part of your body without having the whole thing move all the time. And this is happening in the spine like crazy. So, the phase 2 is that. Phase 3 is, how do you do that under increasing stress? This is what people call, they call it core strength or core conditioning. It's a really bad term because it's not about core. It's about biomechanical stability. How do you develop biomechanical stability under stress in a reliable way? So if people just did that, and then they, there are a couple of other things that they need to do to get themselves prepared and stuff like that. If we can have a conversation and every physical health practitioner can help understand where their client is, and so what they need to do to get them to where they're going, then the whole thing would be easier. So the vitality pathway is really just it's an educational tool to help people know what assessments they should be doing and to put some, to help them motivate them to do there are some exercises that we do in reconditioning at the beginning phases that the end user, if they don't really understand it, they're like these weird little drills that we, and they see them as weird exercises. And my brother is the one of the ones that, every time I'd give him stuff to do because his back was sore or whatever, he's like, I can't do these exercises in the gym. They're weird. And I'm like, yeah, but you need to do them anyway. Yeah. So that's actually one of the things that, coming back to this objective measures thing, if we can start to, measure people's imbalances and show them how wildly imbalanced they are, then all of a sudden what's not a weird exercise, it's this messed up thing that I need to fix. Yeah.
Yeah. So. And why so many skip straight forward to fitness, bypassing critical phases? Like, explain, is it ignorance? Is it lack of awareness or?
Yeah, lack of awareness, lack of education from our standpoint, lack of the educational institutes that are teaching us the things that, getting us prepared as when we're going through school. They're not addressing this stuff at all because by and large, they don't know about them. Yeah. And it takes people who have, and I'm not the only one that is looking at it. Maybe people call it different things, but there are a lot of us that have been in this industry for a long time that are heavily invested in helping people get reconditioned so that they can, move forward and get into high performance training or get into fitness or whatever. The quick weekend courses that people are taking for personal training and even some of the university courses that are not addressing these issues, you're setting people up for failure. Now, I do understand that these things, they take time to understand. They take time to teach. But we really need to be helping the whole industry understand better what humans actually need to be able to be resilient.
Yeah. Let's talk about reconditioning. How many stages there are?
5. There are 5 stages of reconditioning.
Yeah. Can you explain?
So imbalances is phase 1. The fundamental skills or dissociation, whatever you want to call it, is stage 2. So understanding how to just gain posture. Biomechanical stability is stage 3. So you're actually just taking your fundamental skills, like how to manage your posture, and you're applying stress in all kinds of different directions and teaching people how to continue to manage that posture under stress. Phase 4 is what I call building blocks. So when we're looking forward to doing things like, we want to do deadlifts and squats and, step ups and all of these, types of things, working towards vertical jumps, if you're going straight into complex movements, there is a very good chance, and I've seen this many times in my career, that like, oh, how come that's not working? If I skipped all these steps, oh, there's this one set of muscles that really isn't firing properly. So this is in reconditioning phase 4. We're looking at, are all of the systems that it takes to do that more complicated movement, are they all working? And are they strong enough? So we might do some individual exercises to strengthen a particular area because, maybe they injured themselves 20 years ago or 10 years ago, and now they have this latent weakness that's going to be problematic later. So the stage 4 is to address those types of things. Stage 5 is to teach them the 6, and there are more than 6 skills, and people is like, oh, what about these? There are 6 skills that if you don't know these ones, then you shouldn't be starting anything. So if you don't know how to squat properly, and that's not necessarily with any axial load. So the definition of a squat for me is the ability to get under something and lift it up, on your shoulder or something like that. There is a complex movement behind that. So we need to teach you how to do that, and then then start to add stress. So squatting is one, and all 6 of these are the same. Lifting. So the ability to just grab something from the ground and lift it up. There are a whole bunch of movement patterns that you need to be good at. And then we increase the stress. The ability to push things forward. Just in general, push things forward. We look at people's biomechanics. Some people do this all messed up. So we need to teach them. The ability to pull things towards you in a horizontal plane. So that's the 4th one. The 5th one, the ability to push things up over your head. And there's a lot of people with shoulder problems that, it's just the movement pattern itself that they aren't good at. And then the last one is the ability to pull things down towards you or pull yourself up towards something. Yeah. At the very minimum, if you can do in our reconditioning stage 5 is looking at those 6 skills and establishing to make sure those 6 skills are good, because then entering into fitness, entering into high performance, we can look at more complicated skills because there are a whole bunch of other ones, so.
Yeah. Interesting. Thanks for sharing, Greg. And I need to ask you, how physical therapists are trained today, based on all what you said so far?
I think they're getting a base from, the educational system gives you a base. And there's a huge reliance on entering wherever your workplace is when you're early on. And this can be like for, injury rehab or whatever, in fitness or strength and conditioning, whatever. It's all the same thing. You come in with this base, and it's funny because I still remember this. You think you know a lot because you've done all of this education. And then you work with somebody who's been in the industry for a long time, and you realize, wow, it's the tip of the iceberg is the stuff that I know. Yeah. And if I could give anybody in this industry that's got less than 5 years experience, and maybe even some of those that are less than 10 years experience, work with somebody who has 20 or more years of experience and who has been dedicated to the space. Because where the real learning happens is all of those situations you come across where you're like, oh, I can't quite figure this out. You talk to a mentor, get yourself a mentor who has a ton of experience in this space, and they have had these conversations with their mentors. They've spent enormous amounts of time trying to figure these things out, because those of us who truly care about what the outcome is, there are very few things that I lose sleep over. And one of them is always been in my career when a client is not progressing the way I expect them to. And that is the educational system right now. And one of the things that really needs to improve is how those of us, with the experience that are bringing the information forward, how we're bringing that information forward and how we're really helping the young people in our industry understand, what's really important.
Yeah. And in your case, Greg, within your industry, how do you measure, or put it this way, how do you define success?
Defining success moment in my life has always been when a client comes to me and out of the blue, not expecting it, says, listen, I just want to take a second to say thank you because the stuff that you've helped me through has changed my life. There is no better reward than that.
Yeah.
It's not financial. It's not anything else. It's for me, it's always been the true ability to help people improve their lives. And because we're getting them at a state, oftentimes when they're frustrated, they don't know what to do. And, I think for a lot of career paths, it's rare. Maybe you get one person in your life that tells you that. I've been very fortunate to have multiple people stop me in the beginning of a session, the middle of a session or something like that, and truly and honestly say that I've helped them change their lives. They did all the work. I just gave them the advice. They did it. But very rewarding to see, that type of change.
Yeah, fantastic. How have ultramarathons and your own physical experiences, Greg, shaped your approach?
So I only did the one ultra. I was always a self-professed non-runner. But what was interesting, and I think what people can take from this sort of stuff, I've always pushed myself.
Yeah.
I've never, what's really interesting is my view on the winning attitude. There's no such thing as the winning mindset. And people will disagree with this, and that's totally fine. There's really only two ways to look at something. One is you're trying not to lose, which means you're doing everything you can to not come in second, or you're trying to be the best that you can be. How that's reflected in my life is I don't ever need to win, but I will always try. So when it comes to like the ultra that we just ran, the training that I did was great. Was fully expecting, because it was the first one I'd ever run. We were running up the side of a mountain. That I'll come in last. I was totally happy. We were running with 50 other people who have done ultra marathons before and were trained, and I had not done any of this before. And my training went really well, and the climb was amazing. I actually dealt with an injury at the 25th kilometer mark, and managed to push myself all the way through to the end, which I was pretty happy about. And it was all about the ultra, and things like that are all about resilience. If you can teach yourself to just keep moving forward in anything you do, then you will succeed in it.
Yeah.
And that's those types of things. And I tell this to my clients: sign up for something that scares you right now.
If you want to give one piece of advice to a physical therapist starting their career now, what would be the most important advice?
Measure everything.
Yeah.
Measure everything to improve your understanding of what's going on, and don't let the system tell you how you should work with people. Work with people the way you should work with people. What is the best outcome? Too often I've had to say to other people, other practitioners and clinic owners and stuff like that have said to me, you can't work like that. And I've turned and said, I will act in the best interest of the client all the time. Yeah. No matter what the insurance company is telling me to do, what the association is telling me they think I should do, how much they think I should charge, how often they think I should work with people. Nothing. None of that. None of that matters to me. What matters is the outcome, and that's the only thing that should matter.
Yeah. It was very clear, and you made it clear to our audience that you base your judgment subject to real life data. So you measure everything. In a time where AI is exploding, how do you embrace AI? Do you use AI actually? Or are you ready to implement AI within the next couple of months and going forward?
Yeah, we use it all the time in our messaging. Certainly, it's an interesting thing in our business. You need to get yourself out there. Most people, so I don't do it for my clinical business. I don't really need it for that. But, for Acculete and for some of the other projects that I've worked on and stuff like that. I think if you're not leveraging AI at this point, you're working very slowly. It's a tool. It's not always right. You got to give it the right information. You got to learn how each of the tools actually works so that you can get your message and something that's true and real and impactful out there properly. It's a great tool for that. Some of the predictive stuff that is coming up through AI, I'm sure will help us. We haven't leveraged it yet because we haven't needed it at this point. But from a messaging point of view and from a business point of view, those practitioners that are working, it's just them or just them and a partner, there are so many things to do as an entrepreneur that you can really be helping yourself out if you can understand how some of these language models and some of these AIs can help you. From a legal point of view and from a accounting point of view and from a marketing point of view, from a storytelling point of view, all of that sort of stuff.
Great. Now it's time for our lightning round.
Okay.
Ready for speedy Q&A?
Sure.
Let's do this. Morning routine in one word.
Get up early.
Yeah. We have a nice say in French. Le monde appartient à ceux qui se lèvent tôt. Word belongs to who wakes up early.
Yeah.
Favorite fitness myth to debunk?
Myth to debunk. That you need to train like a high-performance athlete.
I can't agree more. Coffee or tea or something else?
Tea. But I drink coffee too, and it affects me. But tea is better.
It's better, yeah. Most impactful book you've read?
The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Ideal vacation destination?
Costa Rica. Surfer.
Okay.
Let me qualify that. I'm a horrible surfer, and I haven't done it often, but I love it.
Favorite quote or mantra?
I'll give you one that I give to my clients all the time. You don't have to train every day, but you do have to train today.
I like it. Yeah.
So what I tell my clients that is when you say to yourself, you don't have to train every day, you're talking about the past. Stop beating yourself up about the past. Doesn't matter. You have no control over it. But when you say to yourself, I do have to train today, it's a prompt to look at your schedule and make sure that you're prioritizing yourself.
If you could have a dinner with a historical figure, who would it be and why?
It's an interesting one. A historical figure? I'd probably say Churchill because I would be very interested the amount of stress and information that was coming through at that time, and from a leadership point of view, how do you deal with the enormity of the situation he was facing in a way that is dignified and without just being crushed by the pressure?
Something listeners might be surprised to learn about you.
That's a good one. I don't know, actually. I'm a pretty basic guy. Probably they would be surprised how much I train. I train far less than most people. And I think that would be the one thing. They would probably assume because the industry I'm in, I'm like, training twice a day, 6-7 days a week. Like that's, that's these up at 4 a.m. I get up early. But I allow my body to recover much more than people in our industry do.
Yeah. Greg Lothian, thank you so much for joining us today. It has been an absolute pleasure.
Absolutely. It's been great. I really enjoyed it. Yeah. Thanks. And thanks for the opportunity, taking the time.
You're welcome. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to the Pre-Zero Sports Talk podcast. If you enjoyed this conversation, please share and subscribe. I leave you with a quote from the one and only coach John Wooden. It's what you learn after you know it all that counts. Until next time, I'm Sid Bensalah. Stay curious, stay inspired. We see you soon. Bye-bye.